Hi everyone, welcome to another webisode of The Good Doctor on eZeLiving.com. Today I'm here in the company of Dr. Susan Bowman, and we're going to have a conversation about depression. So we've all heard the word depression. We've seen it in Hollywood, we've seen it in the textbooks. We've even seen this word being used or misused a lot by average people. Dr. Bowman, what is depression?
The real depression is a clinical illness, just like high blood pressure. It's often triggered by stress, life events like bereavement, losing a job, divorce, that sort of thing. And most people, 50% of people in fact, suffer at least mild depression at some point in their lives. Those are the figures.
So what happens to our anatomy? Is it physiological? Is it psychological?
It's psychological mainly, with physical symptoms. There is also another type of depression which is chemically induced because the neurotransmitters in the brain aren't working properly. The symptoms that you get, the physical symptoms, are tiredness, you can't sleep. Usually you can't get off to sleep and then you wake up after a couple of hours, can't go back to sleep. You can't eat, your sex drive goes down, you get mood swings, you feel very low, you feel very tearful. Sometimes people feel very irritable as well. That's another symptom. You lose your self-confidence, you can't concentrate, your memory goes. So lots and lots of physical symptoms, but the overriding feeling is one of hopelessness, no good in the future, just feeling absolutely shocking.
What about our hormones? Does our body's immune system drop? Our defense mechanism? Our organs don't function properly?
The organs function properly, but certainly your immunity goes down when you're in that sort of state, and you don't function properly just because of all the physical symptoms you're getting.
So the question then is, if someone does experience depression, and like you explained, how they can potentially get it, what needs to happen for them to rebound and recover?
The main thing is for somebody, and it's not always the patient themselves, for somebody to recognise there's a problem, and then hopefully they'll come and they'll make the first step and talk to somebody and actually reveal the symptoms, and a diagnosis will be made. And that's often the delaying thing. People can suffer with depression for years and not actually come for help. Sometimes it takes a crisis, something in the family or something will happen, and the husband will say, look, you've got to go to the doctors, and that'll happen. And then when they come, the main thing is to try and find out where they're at, because there are so many different levels. There are some people who have thought of suicide, and yet there are other people who are just not functioning very well, and it's just a mild depression. So you find out where they're at, and then there are different types of therapy. There are what we call the talking therapies, psychotherapy, like cognitive behavioural therapy, that sort of thing, which a psychologist would do. There are medications, and there are some very good medications out there these days. When you do take antidepressants, which is what everybody thinks of when you think of depression, you have to actually take them for a long time. A lot of people don't realise that, and they start a course of antidepressants, and after a month or two they might feel slightly better. Some of it's psychological, because the drug actually doesn't build up in your body that quickly. Right. And then they stop them and they think they're better, but they're not. I usually tell people, if they're going to have a course of antidepressants, you're talking of 9 to 12 months of treatment, and you don't suddenly feel better. It's not like a eureka moment where you suddenly think, I feel good now. It's just every month you get a small change. They might fall asleep more easily, they might be less weepy, and it's incremental improvements over the months. And then at the end of the course of treatment, you actually have to stay on the antidepressants for about 3 to 6 months when you feel well.
You raised a good point, is that first an early detection. How do you detect depression? And then who detects depression?
Who detects it, yes. The patient sometimes detects it, and they know that they've come up against a wall, things have got worse and worse and worse, and they know there's something wrong. They can't really tell you what's wrong, but they know they're not right.
So it's not like they've got the common cold, or it's not some illness that you can experience and say, look, I've got this and I need to go. It's something, it's a moody kind of change.
Absolutely. And it's a group of symptoms which all lead to a lack of functioning and just feeling as though you're in the bottom of a black pit and you can't climb out.
Right.
Those are what patients often say.
Can we say it's sort of like a quicksand effect where they're just sinking deeper and deeper and they can't, and they... So back to the first question is, the original question is, how does one detect it? How do you feel that you've got this, and you might be a little bit ashamed of telling anyone, but you know you've got it and you need to see a doctor?
I think it's a group of symptoms which make people feel very uncomfortable and very unhappy, and they actually affect every part of their lives. They affect their marriage, they affect their relationship with their children, with their friends, and they affect them at the workplace. And so they have a group of things happening, often, as we said, not sleeping, can't concentrate, very irritable, and gradually these things compound and they come into you. Quite often they'll come in with one of the symptoms. So they'll come in because they're not sleeping, or they've gone off sex, or they think they're losing their mind, they can't remember anything, they can't concentrate, they can't function. And then you've got to spend a bit of time just chatting and teasing out what's actually going on. Often you'll find triggers, something will have happened, but in a lot of people, depression actually comes after many, many triggers. You might have, say, a divorce, then you lose your mom, then your job gets changed, or you get moved from one department to another, and all of these stresses just add up, and that's your breaking point. So they'll come with you, those sort of things. So you'll try and find out exactly how they're feeling, and you ask specific questions. Like, are you still interested in sex? Are you sleeping at night? Are you eating? And
you ask those trigger questions, and then you find...
You have to ask all the different questions, and one of the very important things you ask is, have you thought of hurting yourself? Or have you thought of killing yourself, or that it's not worth living anymore? That's a really important one, so you know where you're at.
At the threshold.
Yeah, you really need to know that when you're dealing with somebody. And then you talk to them about the options. As I said, talking therapies, antidepressants. Sometimes even just making that first visit and talking to somebody and admitting what's happening and actually, realizing what's going on with them is enough to help them to start to get better. Well,
thank you very much for this insightful information. If you've got any thoughts, questions about this subject matter, please leave them in the comments sections down below, and we'll definitely raise them in our future webisodes. Thanks for watching The Good Doctor on eZeLiving.com, where you can find anything and everything lifestyle.